everybody. It is Thursday morning at 9:30 a.m. Cotton Cuts time. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. Hey, so I've got a little bit of a secret I've got to kind of disclose. So this was actually filmed last week. I am on vacation today, real time, with my family in Mexico. One of our dear friends is getting married. And so this is unfortunately pre-recorded for everybody, but I guarantee you we're going to have a ton of fun. Definitely ask questions. I've been looking ahead at our agenda. There's going to be opportunities for you guys to kind of bounce ideas off each other and kind of see what happens. So it is going to be just as awesome as it normally is. As always, I appreciate you guys for joining us. And hey, Paula puts a lot of time into that little intro segment. You guys really need to check in that because Beth Goody at Goody Goods, Jiminy Crackety, she's moving so fast on her design wall. Like if I had that many kids and this much on my plate, I'd probably have to move that fast to quilt as well. But she does a fantastic job. And so definitely check out the intro videos, guys, if you are joining us. So good morning. We're going to start every show, start as we do every show. So it'll be taking questions from you. They're literally sitting here. We will see what questions you guys have today. So the first question comes to us from William from Cheyenne, Wyoming. Good morning, Wilma. So she asks, what are some common mistakes to avoid in quilting? Okay. So this one's an interesting question, and I would love to crowdsource the answer to this. What are some common mistakes to avoid in quilting? And so I would say, oh my gosh, I don't think there's mistakes to avoid because I think mistakes are learning opportunities. And I think by making mistakes, we actually learn and get better on things that we like and don't like. And I feel like, one of the most common mistakes to avoid in quilting is being too constrained to a rule or being kind of forcing yourself to have to do things one way, because quilting is an art and there is no one way to do art. And so I feel like one of the most common mistakes is to hold yourself to artificial rules created by other people and not letting yourself the freedom to make a mistake, to try something new, and to give yourself the time it takes to learn a new skill effectively. I feel like I'm going to channel my inner Dominic here and be like, just relax and enjoy the process and know that you're just putting two pieces of fabric together. We're not solving nuclear energy crisis here, guys. And it's just fabric. It can be taken apart and sewn back together. Okay, so I am being told that Dominic's snippet video, he sewed a snippet challenge for us, it's going to be on YouTube by the time you guys see this. I love watching little Dominic's little videos, right? He gives everyone so much confidence. I see him and I'm like, I am inspired to quilt. So, but Dominic's kind of key motive is just relax. Just enjoy the process. You're going to make mistakes. It's totally fine. It's not like, our lives depend on, is it a 1/4 inch or is it 3/8 of an inch seam allowance? And is it cotton or is it rayon? Like, just enjoy the process. And so I think one of the most common mistakes is not enjoying the process. And I think that's probably why a lot of people quit or need to take a break or lose their sewing mojo. I would love to see what comments you guys have. When I watch this video afterwards, I'm going to come in because I love learning from you guys as well. What are some common mistakes to avoid when quilting? Thanks so much for the question, Wilma. I appreciate it. All right. And next question comes to us from Claire Cody from Medora, North Dakota. All right. What is foundation paper piecing and how do I do it? Okay. This is a great question. We actually talked a lot about foundation paper piecing on our last show because our featured designer this month is Ingrid Altenator. She is a foundation paper piecer and we're spotlighting her this month. So I think this is an absolute fair question. So foundation paper piecing is actually a technique of quilting that involves sewing pieces of fabric together onto paper and using paper to guide your stitches. And then you actually are quilting on the back side of the paper. So what you see when you're sewing is you're sewing on the paper and you're actually stitching two pieces of fabric together. So when you flip it over and open them up, it's as if you were stitching directly on them. And I think it sounds super complex and it sounds hard, but it is a great way to create an artistic piece of pieced fabric to get away from Y seams, to get away from complicated stitching. Yes, you could make this pattern without the paper, but by having that paper guide you, you're able to get sharper points. You're able to get more photorealistic creations using foundation paper piecing. And so I know the Cotton Cuts team is gathering on Thursday night, the day that this video drops, and they're going to do some foundation paper piecing together because some have tried it and like it and some have not. And so it's a great kind of group activity because it does It does exercise some of the gray matter a little bit because you have to kind of flip your brain around. And so not fabric to fabric, but paper on top of fabric to fabric. And I am going to give one of my beginner tips and tricks for foundation paper piecing, and that's to use either batiks or solids. One of the hardest parts is how that fabric is going to look when you flip it over. And if you have fabric that doesn't have a defined right side or wrong side, it takes away that element of complexity. So you can really focus on making sure that when the fabric flips over, it's going to cover the area you want it to cover. And so when you actually, there's a berserker number of videos out here about this. Yvette Renee is one of our favorite YouTube ambassadors, and she has a ton of tutorials on foundation paper piecing. She loves to paper piece, foundation paper piece specifically. And so, Claire, I don't think we can actually do a tutorial here online, but there are a lot of super awesome resources out there on YouTube for you as well. Okay, that's it. Those are the questions we have. If you want to submit a question for next week when I am back in the country, you can definitely do it here at cottoncuts.com/live. I love asking these questions. I love getting the responses from you guys. And so definitely keep us going. This is fun. I love this. All right, so when you are watching us, even though this is pre-recorded, make sure that you give StreamYard permission so the team can answer your questions. And who knows, maybe I'll get Wi-Fi where I'm at and I'll be able to pop in and engage with you guys as well, watching myself. I feel like there's some sort of inception twist there. But okay, anyways, don't forget to stay to the end. We have a fun topic today. Make sure you stay to the end. We're going to be giving away a $25 gift card to our shop. Guys, we are moving. We are moving in the month of August. We are moving in the month of August in St. Louis. Wish us luck. This is going to be awesome. But as we move, we're kind of going through the shop and we're taking a look at the corners of our website and maybe sharing things with you guys that you didn't even know we had. And so we're going to give away that $25 gift certificate. I'm going to talk today about our mystery bundles in the shop. We have a whole category that we have carved out on the Cotton Cuts website called mystery bundles. And these are fun places for our team to kind of put fabrics together in a mystery fashion and be able to send it out to inspire and delight you. And we have a whole family of mystery bundles in the shop. And so the ones I'm going to focus on today are our designer mystery bundles. And so this is where our team will pick either a designer brand or perhaps an individual designer. And we put together just half yards that we have that are all from a single theme. And so I have 3 here to show you guys today. And so they're all different, guys. So that's the mystery bundle part. So what I'm going to show you today is one that, like, if you're the very first person to order, Holly will probably grab and you'll be the first one to get, but they're all going to be different. And so the first one I have is Ruby Star. And so there are 6 half yards in here. So it's 3 yards of fabric. They're all Ruby Star themed. It could be from an old collection. Those are always the best little nuggets. We love shipping like Ruby Star that's 3 or 4 years old. And then you get it and you're like, oh my gosh, if I was to find this on Facebook, it'd be $200 a yard. This is amazing. That's fun. We also have Allison Glass, right? So Allison Glass is a favorite at Cotton Cuts. And so we have some collections in here. As I'm even looking at this, guys, I know some of these go back 2 years or so. So if there's like a vintage Allison Glass you're looking for, these mystery bundles might be a great way to get it to you. And then of course, Kate. So guys, Cape is one of these designers. If you've never tried Cape and you want to kind of figure out and play with it and see what all the hoopla is about, these bundles are great. Just so you guys know, like when I'm looking at pricing at fabrics, for some reason, Cape is consistently $1 or $2 more than a lot of other designers. So these mystery bundles are a great way to kind of get a feel for it. Perhaps you're a Cape collector and you love Cape. This is a great way to go. So we have mystery bundles that are designer themed. We have mystery bundles that are seasonally themed, excuse me. So we have some Halloween and some Christmas bundles on there, some winter themed ones. And we've got mystery bundles that are just for fun. So perhaps you want to get a group of friends together and kind of, draw fat quarters out of a hat, or maybe you're going to a guild event and you've got and you have a project where you have to, do the left, center, right fat quarter. These little bundles are great ways to kind of do that without necessarily dipping into your designer stash. So take a look at the bundles, guys. I'm telling you, we've got lots of stuff that live on our website that you might not know about, and it's tons of fun. People enjoy it, so we might as well keep talking about it. All right, so what's happening in our shop this week? So to be clear, it's happening previous to this show while I am away. So our team is working on clues 6 and 7. It is super fantastic to see kind of Tree of Life keep to advance through the shop. We're trying to get as much of that done as possible before we move, so that way we can make sure those clues keep coming to you each month. Guys, we are cutting these cute little floral states blocks. And I'm telling you, man, we have changed the packaging, we changed the artwork. These are the cutest little bundles that we are going to be sending to you guys. And so they're all going to be die cut. They're all going to be in individual packaging. Paula is running to make sure that I show you guys the block. So I said this a couple weeks ago. This is our first block. This block is going to be the Delaware block. It's fun. We've got aqua, we've got white, we've got all the floral states. We're going to show you more of that next week because they ship on June 1st to everybody. They're going to have floral statehood cards. They're going to have a coloring map with cute surprises in there. So if you have not signed up, I think we're down to maybe like less than 10 seats or so. By the time this drops, they may be all gone, but you're going to want to get in on this. If there's an individual state that you're specifically looking for, then keep an eye for when it gets released. Again, we're releasing these in orders that the states became states. When we were thinking of ways to do it, alphabetically seemed kind of boring. I mean, great if you're in like Alaska and Alabama, not so great if you're in Wyoming. So we just decided to do them in the order they became states because that felt fair. And so the first 5 states are going to be up for June 1st. Definitely get in on that. Don't forget about our snippet challenge as well. Dominic released a video. He's going to have an entry, guys. It is all crowd voted. It is all voted on by you guys and everyone that you choose to share the link with. And there's going to be prizes for the small project. There's going to be prizes for the quilt project. We just want to showcase your guys' ingenuity and creativity as we convert these snippets, which are ultimately, I mean, a lot of companies would just take what we put in a snippet bag and just throw it away. It would just go into a landfill. Guys, we like knowing that this fabric is valuable, it still has a life and can still be repurposed into something awesome and inspiring. And we love seeing the galleries that come out after challenges like this to inspire people to just not throw away the scraps, to repurpose them, but also, I mean, we don't have to hoard the scraps either. The scraps do have life and they can be put to meaningful use. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this is going. We have a ton of entries so far. I cannot wait to see it come together. All right. So the theme of this week's show is as how to press seam. So this is a super common question at Cotton Cut. Is I'm sewing along, I'm sewing fill in the blank project, and I need to know how to press my seams after I stitch 2 pieces of fabric together. Because as we all know, pressing is super important. So let's start first with why pressing is important. And so to press the seams is important because you want your pieces to be able to lay as flat as possible. You also don't want to leave a lot of chance. If you don't press the seam, they're going to be wonky on the back of your quilt. And when you quilt it, it's going to be a lumpy, bumpy mess. And so we actually give you directions on how to press your seams. When I was first learning to quilt 30, 40 years ago, I was always taught to press to the darker fabric. Enter your own Star Wars joke here. But I was always taught to press to the dark side. And I think that was because, you know, back in the day, we've talked about how fabrics have changed over time. You always press to the darker fabric because you didn't want it to be seen through the lighter fabric. Back when fabrics were a little thinner, a little less woven, you didn't want to press to the lighter side because you could see through it when you actually stitched your quilt together. And so it was always, always, always without, again, quilt police, press to the dark side. And what happened about 10, 15, 20, probably 25 years ago now is we realized you didn't necessarily have to follow that rule. Because once you piece the quilt together, now that fabrics are a little heavier, the printing is a little bit more assured, you don't always have to press to the dark side. And so then if there became this movement to press in the direction where your seams would nest together most effectively, meaning that you could get the sharpest points. And I'm going to show you what this means in a minute. But the idea is when you sew the 2 pieces, when you sew connecting pieces together, you want your seams to butt up next to each other, not double over and create a double stack of seam, creating excessive bulk in your quilt. And so pattern designers started incorporating directions for how to press at each step in the process. And so this is something we do a lot. When we have these die cut parts and pieces, we always tell you how to stitch the seam together and which direction to press the seam. And I know for me early on, I'm going to tell you guys, it was like fingernails on chalkboard because I'm like, no, I'm supposed to press to the dark. I've been pressing to the dark for 20 years. This is how I was taught. And you have to trust the process because if you press it in the way that the pattern designer shows you, you will end up with a flatter, crisper quilt where all of your seams and your points match as nicely as they possibly can, and you'll be happier with the result. Because if you're like me, my first sewing machine could not handle sewing through 6 to 8 layers of fabric, and if those seams did not nest, it would make ugly sounds, and it would have to go to the shop, and I would be breaking needles. So there's multiple reasons to press in the direction that the pattern designer tells you to for smoothness, laying flat, ability to sew through multiple layers, crisp, sharp edges. And so what does that mean to press in the direction that the designer tells you to? And so I have actually one of our PMQ flues here. And so I'm going to fold it so it doesn't take up the full screen. But you can see at each step, there's kind of little white arrows that show you how to press. And so what you're supposed to do is when you stitch together is press in the direction of the arrows. And so I had to take a minute for that when I first started seeing directions like this. So what the arrow means is that's the way you want your fabric to flop over, is you want your fabric to flop over behind the shape that has the arrow pointing to it. So you want to press your seam in that direction. If you do that, and then you connect it to its next piece, it will definitely meet up. So let me show you what this means. And so I have paper today because I thought paper would be a good way to represent this in a physical fashion. So I have these two pieces of paper. One is blue and one is yellow, depending on how you're looking at it. The lights might wash it out, but one is blue and one is yellow. And I stitched my little 1/4-inch seam allowance across the top here. And so when I open up the paper, you can see that the seam wants to go a certain way. And so in this case, the instructions told me to point it down towards the blue. And so I've pressed my seam so that both of these layers of fabric go towards the blue. My arrow is going towards the blue. We'll talk about pressing the seam open in a minute, so we'll come back to that. But in theory, this one, the arrow said point press to the blue, and so I pressed to the blue. Now I have 2 of these units. Oftentimes in Puzzle Mystery Clues, we make 2 units. And so I've pressed both to the blue. Now, when I go to sew these together, what I'm going to do is the instructions are going to tell me to do this. And I'm going to show you guys what it looks like from the side. So hopefully we can see that. It's going to zoom in on the paper and not me. And I'm going to show you what it looks like stitched together in a minute. And so when you put these 2 together and you kind of mush them together, you can see that those pieces of fabric are actually going to sit right on top of each other. Let me see if I can show you how to do that. And so they're going to nest on the side. And when I stitch this together, you can see there's no more than kind of 3 layers of fabric at a time. I've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 on both the left and the right of where they meet up. Versus if I was trying to sew them together like this, then when I sew through those seam allowances, it's going through 6 layers of fabric. Guys, that's a lot for a needle to handle, especially when it's fabric and not just paper. And so by doing this, I'm sewing through less layers of fabric. And when I am putting them together before it goes in my machine, I am pushing them together so that those ends meet and get really, really tight and really, really crisp. And advanced skill, depending on what you put on the bottom, your feed dogs are actually going to push those together really, really tight to get you the best intersection. So by trusting the pressing instructions and pressing the instruction it was given, I can actually get those 2 pieces of fabric together. Like I am trying to push them apart, but they are nested. They are bumped up right against each other and they're not going to go anywhere. So what happens next? If I sew these together, what does it look like? And so I'm going to show you on paper. And so right there at the intersection where they met, guys, that is a super crisp, super sharp intersection because they nested together. There's none of the like 1/8 of an inch, 1/2 of an inch, 1/4 inch little jig that can happen if you don't nest, if those seams don't nest together. Now on the back, I'm going to show you a bit of magic. I learned this from Bonnie Hunter. I cannot take credit for this as well. But on the back, when I've pressed it together like this, I get this cute little pinwheel thing. And so that also reduces bulk because what can happen at times is when you put a piece together like this and you flop them both over, you get like a little bump, a little knob, and that can be bothersome to some people. And so I learned early on, whenever I'm sewing together kind of 4 corners like this, to flip them open. And then I press it this way. And guess what, guys? Like it is super flat. There's not a lot of bulk in this, and it won't be a lot of bulk in your fabric either. So in this case, when you press in the directions that the designer tells you, you nest them together, you're going to get a pretty uniformly flat You're going to get junctions that you're going to be happier with. Now, there are several people that press open. And what that means when you press your seams open is when you stitch the two pieces together, you're actually going to flop the same color towards its own side. And so I'm making an example of what that looks like here. And so I've taken it, and the yellow fabric would get pressed on top of the yellow fabric. The blue fabric would get pressed on top of the blue fabric. And so this kind of gets to the, you're not going to see a darker fabric behind a lighter fabric because you're pressing the fabric behind its friend. This works really well. A lot of people, I've done this before. It works really well to keep the seams really flat because, as you can see, like now each side only has two pieces versus the three pieces. So it keeps it nice and flat. The project that I used pressing open on, it came very, very flat. I was like, oh my gosh, I should do this all the time. It takes a little bit more effort, but it made a super flat project. However, what I've discovered, and it depends, right? If you like this and you're okay with it, it's great. That seam where the thread is actually just thread. So there's no fabric behind it. And so if one of those gets nicked, it could potentially be a little weaker. If you go to quilt it and you want to go quilting right down through this line, there's no fabric behind here because it is on the back. It is just thread. And so the only thing in that intersection is thread, as opposed to if I pressed it to one side, in that thread intersection, there's that little bit of yellow fabric on the back. It is just a consideration. I know there's some people that believe and swear by pressing seams open. It does just have a little bit of a risk to it. Now, if you do open seams and you're okay with that, leave a comment on this video and let us know. It is just one of those things I've always been told that when you do press your seams open like this, it's exceptionally flat and it's awesome. But literally the only thing connecting your two pieces of fabric together is the thread. There's no fabric on the back side. Okay, so that's that. So that's how we press, and that's why we press in the direction of the arrows. If you're like me and sometimes you're in a hurry or you're doing this late at night and you accidentally press in the wrong direction, nothing bad is going to happen. It's okay. If your seams aren't perfectly nested because in one clue you pressed it in the wrong direction, everything will be okay. These are guidelines. These are things that are going to help your future self out. However, it's not going to negatively impact the project. I don't know about you, but the last time I gave a quilt to someone, they didn't go through each seam and tell me, oh, you pressed this one open and you pressed this one to the wrong direction. You pressed and you've got too much over here. People don't do that. That's not the real world, gang. This is really just kind of a best practice to help you. But if you don't do it, it's totally fine. It is your quilt. It is your piece of artwork. Again, as we started out, what are some common mistakes to avoid in quilting? Guys, just enjoy the process. If you accidentally press something the wrong way, it's just an iron. Just push it the other way. Just keep going. And I readily admit, I sew many projects where on the back of my quilt, a seam will go up and then it'll flip down as it gets to the next intersection. And you know what? That's okay. Because literally once it's quilted, nobody knows but me, and I'm okay with that. And so it's really just, are you going to be okay with the finished project? These are just tips and tricks. These make it easier. But at the same time, if you don't follow them, nothing bad is going to happen. I promise I won't tell anyone. So my question for you guys, as I've been talking about this, is what do you prefer to do? Do you live by the one rule, the like always to the dark side? Do you press your seams open? And if you do, why? How can you help us understand why pressing seams open is a really good idea? And if you believe in nesting your seams together and you nest 100% of the time, why? And how did you learn how to do that? And how does it help you? What are some of the benefits of that? So guys, open it up. I'm opening this up for you guys because I know everyone has a different way of doing it. I'm just showing you the benefits of one way, but let's all learn from each other as we watch the video. Okay, so thank you guys so much for joining me. That is a fantastic topic. We're going to come back and talk about some other things about seams and pressing and allowance and stitching and addition, quilting and all sorts of things. But I thought this was a good topic to kind of share with everyone. We always get questions, what are these little arrows? So it'd be timely to talk about it. All right, so today we're giving away that $25 gift certificate in the shop. And so it kind of feeds into our first question, the topic we just talked about. What is one thing that you struggle with when it comes to quilting? Maybe perhaps your struggle can be an opportunity for someone to help you, or perhaps you can experience share and there's another person that's struggling with the same thing you are, and you guys might be able to team up and work through it together. To me, struggles are opportunities, right? Struggles are opportunities to learn something, to do something different, to really kind of overcome and then be proud of the accomplishment that you have at the end. So feel free to, wherever you see this video, if you're watching us live on Facebook or YouTube, or if you're watching our replay on Instagram, Find the video, answer the question, what is one thing you struggle with when it comes to quilting? And we will pick a winner to get a $25 gift certificate to our shop tomorrow. We have some quick reminders. So don't forget Cotton Cuts Cares. This organization this month is Children's Nutritional Program of Haiti. For every new classic, every new modern maker, every new Java, and every new Chroma Super Pot purchase this month, in the month of May, we only have a few more days to go. We will donate $5 to the nutritional program to make sure that children in Haiti are fed. Lots of natural disasters happening in Haiti, so let's make sure that the children continue to be fed and continue to thrive and grow. And don't forget to join our snippet challenge. Entries are coming in first week in June, guys. So once we get through Wild West signups that first week in June, we're going to marvel at everyone's awesome creations. And don't forget that signups start for Wild West next Friday. We will have a lot more on all the social medias about the Wild West, the colorways, the names, and the signups, and it is going to be awesome. Okay, I think that's it for me, guys. I am going to real time now go back to Mexico and start enjoying that wedding. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Thursday and that you guys have a great, happy sewing weekend. Have a great holiday weekend for those of you in the United States celebrating Memorial Day, and I will see you guys next Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Thank you all so much and have a great day.